Jen. Wow, that was quite an introduction. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Your campus is wonderful. A lot of changes have been made since I was here in 1983 to 1986. When Jennifer asked me to speak on what my life was like being an entrepreneur, I was somewhat confused until I looked up the meaning of this word. The description of an entrepreneur as a person who starts a business and is willing to risk loss in order to make money, or one who organizes, manages, and assumes the risk of a business or enterprise. Note the common keywords business and risk. If there's no real business or risk, you're not an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is not a job. Being a leader is not a job. If there is no real expertise, no real product, no real business, no real risk, and no real prospect for return on investment, you're not working, and you're not an entrepreneur either. In 1973, we were willing to risk our home to make a success of a building that we took over in Sandy, Utah, called the Rustic Acres. If you have grandparents that lived around that area, you should ask them, and they might recall that business. It was located on the corner of 106 South and 7th East. There was not even a stop sign. Now, if any of you are familiar with that area, and how many are you? Okay? And you're probably saying to yourself, no way. The building was built by the inmates from the Utah State Prison in the early 50s. The bar was on one side, the kitchen was in the middle, and on the other side was the dining room. Now, people have to eat. People must eat. People might stop buying clothes or jewelry, but they will never stop eating. If there's an industry that is unlikely to go down, it is the food industry, regardless of the economic situation, weather, or whatsoever. People must eat. But it won't be at your place of business unless your restaurant is clean, serves quality food, and inviting surroundings. Sandy City at that time was booming. The construction workers were our salvation. These men needed a substantial lunch, and they needed to get back to work. The food was authentically homemade, and not with the spelling M-A-I-D, but M-A-D-E. We had a daily special. The cost, $1.25. Now, the restaurant business is really more of a service building. A service business. Satisfying customers is your ultimate task and utmost priority. Now, you're dealing with humans, one of the most challenging aspects of the business. We paid for all our deliveries. Charging was not even an option. So a word to the wise: pay your debts, loans, products, and employees first. Put some money aside for emergencies and future taxes. Then, and only then, write yourself out a small check, if possible. In business, knowledge is power. You need to know everything about running a restaurant, and you need to know the entire food industry. I wished I had a template for that back in 1973. But I had knowledge of food, I was a good cook, and after all, I was a wife and a stay-at-home mother of 4. But when I think back about the bar and the restaurant business, that really wasn't that far away from it. I still cooked, I still cleaned, and I took care of people. Now, we didn't have the luxury of going to Google to put an ad for our business. It was all word of mouth. Within a year, the construction workers became regulars. They brought their families for weekend breakfasts, and their wives or girlfriends a night out and a game of pool. We offered Christmas and New Year's Eve parties, which was a great exposure for the business. Now, the bar actually took care of itself. Two pool tables and a pinball machine was available. And of course, I can't forget the punch boards. Now you're saying, what on earth is a punch board? It was about this big, like this, and it had individual squares, and you would buy like 12 punches for $1. You'd take a pin, stick it through the hole, push out the paper, unroll it. It would tell you if you were either a loser or a winner. And that, in the state of Utah, was a form of gambling. Now, the holidays were very profitable. For Christmas, we had a huge stocking. It was filled with stuffed animals, toys, candies. And then for Easter, there were huge Easter baskets, small ones, also filled with every goodie that a child would love. Now, Valentine's Day was, I think, the most profitable because the customer would be able to get the thrill of gambling and yet win a heart-shaped box of chocolates to give to his wife. Now, I remember well sitting at the bar booth and counting the quarters from the pinball machine and the money from the punch board with the vendor. Now, he had the license that was required. He gave us a percentage. Can't really recall it, but I believe it was 40-60. We owned the pool tables. You need a business plan in order to achieve success. Your plan must be logical, practical, and realistic. Within the next 5 years, we did achieve our goal. We began to see a profit. We bought the property across the street, which had an old building. It was a fast food drive-in, and the owner was ready to retire. We remodeled it, and it paid for itself. We then acquired the rights to the concession stand at the South Jordan Equestrian Park. Have any of you been out there to see? Mm-hmm. It's wonderful. It's, of course, it's built up to wonderful facilities, and their food concession is inside, where ours was just, we called it the shack. And it usually had 8 people manning it. We sold hamburgers galore. We sold candy bars, popcorn, gum, you name it. We tried I know it's cotton candy. It has a big round bowl like this. Then you put the sugar in, and then it spins. So we thought, well, we'd give that a try. It was a mistake, because they didn't give us the dome that went over it. So when my son pushed the button after having, and it spun and spun, cotton candy threw itself all over inside the shack. I mean, it was in our hair, it was on the drink stand, it was everywhere. And it took us, I think, weeks, because when it dried, it was hard and sticky. We never tried that again. Now, the chariots races and the quarter horse races were held at this equestrian park. The horse people from all around the western states came to race their pride and joys. Now, the World Cup was held in Wyoming Downs. Can anybody tell me why? Aha, perfect, yes. Wyoming Downs, you can bet. State of Utah, you cannot. Believe me, we lost a lot of revenue. I was asked one day, do you do catering? And I said, well, yes, how can I help you? By word of mouth, we did family reunions, wedding receptions, and golf tournaments. It became so big that instead of loading the grill and everything into the back of our truck, my husband and his father built a huge concession stand right from the ground up. And we would take that to the different places where we were asked to cater. And it was a very good business. You may wonder where the 4 kids were during all of this. Well, I know you've heard the saying, the family that stays together prays together. Well, my saying was, the family that works together stays together. All 4 have learned the value of $1. They have learned a quality of worth ethics. They know the meaning of responsibility, and they were exposed to hard work and the reality of life. If you want to be an entrepreneur someday, here's the equation that you should print out, attach to your mirror, your computer screen, or smartphone. Entrepreneur plus capital equals products plus customers equal business. Now, Jennifer asked me to give some golden nuggets of advice, and I can only do that by how we conducted our businesses. Prepare to work hard. Remember, you're their boss. You cannot be a social butterfly. Avoid partnerships. Pay for deliveries. Do not charge. Inventory every day. On the bar side, we never ran tabs. Do good by your employees. Honesty and integrity really do matter. To be successful, do only what you do best. Thank you for your kind attention. What businesses do we own now? None.
Well, you still have your photography business.
Yes, I do have my photography business. I was in a car accident in 1982. I had to recover for several months, and as I was laying there, feeling sorry for myself, I decided, well, I've supported my husband in his business, things that he wanted to do and accomplish, which we did, and so I went back to school, which was here. So why I say we have none is because over time, with the drive-in and the building up of Sandy, and years of doing the drive-in fast food business, and the equestrian park, which after a fashion they wanted to get bigger, but they also wanted more money to so they could expand, which after 20 years of that, we were getting tired, and it was offered to every one of our 4 kids. Let's see, what age did I retire? Well, actually, I haven't really retired, but from the businesses, yes, just little by little, like in 1983. I worked part-time in the businesses, but I also went to school, which was very rewarding for myself. So, but then I can't believe for you young people or anyone that would like to go into business for themselves, the technology that is available to you. Like I said before, we didn't have Google to tap into and say, What if I want to own a business? What if I want to own a restaurant, a fast food, a pizza? Can I get onto a franchise? I mean, it's all there for you, and you must take advantage of it. Yes, we did take out a loan. It was $20,000. It took us 5 years to pay that off, which we felt was good. And we borrowed $600 from my husband's parents to stock the bar and the kitchen. Oh my gosh, what is my favorite book? Probably, yeah, a couple of them, wow. Well, let's see, there's so many. Probably To Kill a Mockingbird, and I'm reading something about a watchman that was written before the Mockingbird, To Kill a Mockingbird. So, yes, I have several, but thank you for asking. If we went back in the restaurant business, what would I do different? I would want to have more knowledge, which technology would have given me. Because, like I said, I didn't have a template in fact, the day that my fourth child was born, Gary came to the hospital and told me he bought a business. Yes. And so it was 6 weeks later, we opened up the doors. So I knew nothing. Now, my husband knew a lot about the businesses because he was in the beer business. He was in deliveries. He was in upper sales, events. So he knew. And he knew that this could be, this particular establishment, the Rusty Cakers, could be a gold mine if it was handled right. And I think we did a good job because the people that we met there, we cared about. We really did from our hearts, especially the ones that came in every day in the bar. They came in for coffee, they came in for lunch, they came in for dinner, they brought their wives, and they just became family. And then little by little, as we got out, they were still our friends. They still came to see us in our home. And there was, I'd like to tell you about an incident. When I was reminiscing about these days, thanks to Jen, I thought of several things that have happened over the years. And one of them happened, and I named them too. Now this one here is called, When in Trouble, Grab the Broom. One night in the bar, a couple of friends started arguing. What about? I don't know. Well, they started shoving, pushing, and then the fists. I was so upset because they were friends. So I grabbed the broom, walked around the bar, and just started hitting them. So what else could I do? So I said, stop your fighting, you're friends. Go out in the parking lot and kill each other. I don't care. As I was banging them back and forth. And then they stopped, they looked at me, and they started laughing. So one of them called me on a broom, blank on a broom. The inspiration came from not starving to death. And to, pay the loan off very first. I think we did real well by our employees. Every 6 months we gave bonuses. And if they went out on the catering, which was very hard work, we gave them bonuses. So if you take care of your people, they will take care of you. And what kind of qualities did I look in a potential employee? Well, I love numerology. And so all I needed was an Indian astrology. So all I needed was their birth date, which they filled out on their employment form. So I checked out to see if he or she was going to be compatible with me. And that's that's the qualities that I look for. Yes. So believe me, it works, and it worked. So yes. Well, the moments that I feel that I struggled most with, and that is a very good question, and there were several actually. And I think the most important one is, and I gave it in one of my nuggets of wisdom, is you cannot be a friend and a boss too. I learned the hard way. It does not work. You can be friendly and generally interested in them and their lives, their families, whatever, but as far as going out socially, it's I really do not recommend it. It does not work. And another struggle was, in the beginning, we went in a partnership with my husband's very good friend that he had known for like 30 years. That friendship was destroyed because we each had different things that we wanted to do with the business. Like, he wanted to run a tab on the beer side. No, we didn't want to run a beer tab. If they couldn't pay for their coffee or a beer, or now food was different, that was different. But if they couldn't do that, no tab. Why? If they can't pay for it then, how can they pay for it a month later? So it ruined a very good friendship. And they wanted to cut corners, food quality, the amount. So yes, there's a lot of struggles. And if you're in this business yourself, you make those decisions. You know how you want to run your business with ethics and honesty. How did I manage time between business and family? Wow, that is a good question, because we all worked together. We had to. Danny was 10, and right off the get-go, he had to peel a 5-gallon bucket of French fries by hand, which took him about 2 hours. When the deliveries came in, he would check it off, and then he would put it away. And my daughter, Sis, she did the inventory, made sure things were right off the list when they were delivered. And Lee, now she was only 4 when we took over, so she would stand on a bucket and help me wash dishes. She thought and of course I paid her 50 cents a day for doing that, and she was really good. But then she came into her own, where she took over completely the concession stand. She did the ordering. She made sure the bucket of onions were cut, usually by her. The pickles and the mustard, where the vinegar was added. She took the whole thing over. And she made sure that we had enough workers for every weekend. So, it worked out wonderful. And of course, the youngest one, he was 9 when we put him to work in the concession stand. Otherwise, he did a lot of little things. But we had him do the drinks, and of course, it was very busy, and so everybody was hollering, Coke, Sprite, root beer. I mean, back and forth from 2 windows. And I turned around, and he was gone. I went out in the back, and he was sitting on the back step like this. And I said, Gary Dean, what's the matter? You're not out there. You're not in there doing your job. And he said, everybody's hollering at me. They want this. They want that. And I'm trying to pour as fast as I can. And I said, Gary Dean, stop feeling sorry for yourself. That's your job. Now, if you want to get paid, you go back in there and deal with it. And he did. From then on, he was very good. And, you know, when I was asking my kids how these businesses affected them as they were growing up, every one of them said, well, we didn't feel like you were and Daddy were too busy for us. It's because we were all together. Now, I forgot one thing. There was a house very next door to the business, and we moved into that house. So that was very convenient because when I would work nights, the kids I know were right next door, and all they had to do was buzz, and I would pick up the phone and say, what's the matter? Are you okay? And I remember one night the phone buzzed and I was busy. I picked it up and it was Lee, and I said, honey, what's the matter? And she said, well, I'm going to give Gary Dean a bottle that was in his crib, but when I shake it, it doesn't move. Anybody know anything about milk that is spoiled? It doesn't move when you shake it. And I said, oh my gosh. So, of course, I ran home. And so, yeah, that's, none of them felt like they were neglected. They were needed. And they knew it. Thank you. What do the kids do now for a career? Well, Danny, he helped repair the drive-in, anything that needed to be repaired at the concession stand, inside the dining room or the bar. Today, he is a construction worker, and he's doing very well. Sis is a bookkeeper at Westminster College, and Lee is a school teacher, and Gary Dean works out of his home and does distributing for different restaurant businesses in the valley. He travels from all over the western states, California, and I told him when he goes to Hawaii, I will go with him and be his employee. How we handle the loan, how we handle the beer license, and how about social skills as far as handling? Yes, thank you. All right, first off, we put up our home for collateral to get the loan, $20,000, which back then to us was a huge amount. Today, not so much. And as far as the beer license, now that was already in existence, but we did have a problem when we had to renew it. I was trying to find an article that was printed in the newspaper. I believe it was the Desert News. I had a reporter, his name was Khan, can't remember first or last, and he asked several questions about, why should, your beer license be renewed and everything like that. And so I talked to him. I was very upfront. And I said, not one person has ever left this bar drunk. We would not allow it. When we felt like they had one too many, then a cup of coffee was put in front of them, or a cab, or their car keys, or I'll call his wife. So that's how we handled that. But when the article came out in the newspaper, everything was taken out of context, which, today almost they can't do that because, the public is smart. So, and as far as the social skills, that's a very good question. I love people, and I was called Mrs. Pink. My husband, that was his nickname, and so that was fine with me. Claradene, that's kind of hard to, to pronounce or whatever, and so it was easy for me because they made it easy. They were very supportive. In fact, when we first opened up, they came more out of curiosity than anything. And I think really they wanted us to fail because they did like the people that owned it before, but they came to like us and we cared for them, so it worked out. Well, one morning, coming in to make what was the secret of my spaghetti? Well, I'll tell you how that was born. I decided spaghetti was going to be the special. So I was making the sauce, opened up the bar, set Gary Dean on a pool table to where the balls would be in front of him, and he would go to each corner, wham, bam, bam. He got very proficient at that. So anyway, I'm making the sauce, I'm checking it, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's not thick like I wanted it to be. So I thought, well, now wait a minute, Greek spaghetti is a little thinner, and the secret ingredient is a pinch of cinnamon. So I erased the board and I put Greek spaghetti, and from that point on, every Thursday was Greek spaghetti day. About 10 years. Then the drive-in, the concession, and the catering went on for the next 10, 12 years.
And how old was Gary when he retired?
Well, the beer company wanted him back so badly, they offered him a deal that he couldn't refuse. So he left and went back to work and left the responsibility to me. He worked nights and I did the day, because by then the partnership, I hate to say very sadly, was dissolved. So I took care of the days and he worked nights. Yes, I retired at 62. This one here I call Run Like the Wind. And one night a young American Indian came in. He ordered, sat down, I served him, went back in the kitchen, did some work, went back out to see if he needed anything else. He was gone. He ran like the wind. Well, 3 weeks later, he came back. I gave him a menu. He ordered. I went into the kitchen, told my husband that he was back. And Gary said, well, I'm going to go out the back door, and when he runs, I'll be waiting for him. So I fixed his meal, served it, went back into the kitchen, waited a certain amount of time, went out to see if he wanted anything. He was gone. Well, I went back into the kitchen because I knew Gary was going to be waiting for him. And the only way to get out was to run out the front door, go to the corner, run out, and Gary was waiting at the corner. Put out his foot, he tripped, and he skidded all along the gravel. Gary picked him up, brought him back into the dining room. I got a wet rag and some Mercure comb. Anybody know what Mercure comb is? To fix his scratches. And so I said to him, and he was embarrassed. He was very embarrassed, and I knew that. And I said, you know, all you had to do was come in and say, I'm hungry, but I don't have any money. And I would have served you anything you wanted. We didn't call the police or anything, of course, and he went on his way, and we never saw him again. And then one episode was that I like to call the magic day of the microwave. A salesman brought it in, put it on the counter, showed how it worked. I was amazed. I could cook a couple of baked potatoes and then deep fry them and serve them. And you know, it really did save a lot of waste. So that to me was magic. And then one episode, it was April Fool's, and one customer came in. I swear it was every night he ordered a garlic grilled cheese. And we put it on really thick toast. So I thought, I'm going to play an April Fool's joke on him. So as I was cooking it, I took a napkin and I placed it on top of the cheese, put the bread on it, and took it out to him and said, here you go. And so I went back into the kitchen, just laughing to myself. There's a napkin in that sandwich, and he's going to take a bite, and he's going to see it, and I'm going to play an April Fool's joke. Well, I went back out into the bar. He pushed the plate in front of me and said, oh, that was really good. So believe me, I never told him. In fact, I never told anybody. Here, you all know. Yes. Yeah, and you know what? I never done that again. I didn't. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.